What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Opinionated Idiot YouTube channel. It's Monday night, January 3rd, 2023. How's everybody doing this evening? How is everybody doing this evening? Hope all is well. I want to welcome all of the new subscribers here to the channel. I want to give a ton of congratulations and thanks to all of the people that have come over my content in the last few weeks and just done a great job subscribing to the channel, liking my videos, commenting. Love all that activity on the video. So I do appreciate that. Appreciate that very, very much. I appreciate all the people that come over here and spend time with me during these live streams, because that's what I do. I'm a live streamer here. I live stream out these shows and usually cut them down in a smaller file, smaller segments of the shows, and I'll put those out, over the week so people can catch up on, more of a condensed show. And if they want to come back and watch the live shows, they can. But I have a article that I want to get into this evening, which is part 2 to the airmail article that was by Howard Blum, and I did part 1 of it back in January 28th of 2003. Actually, I'm sorry. This portion of the article was published on January 28th, 2003. And I believe part 1 to it was just like prior to like a week before that. You can go back and actually watch part 1 in my live section of the videos if you want to get caught up and kind of connect these two. I'm going to warn everybody out there right now. I am a terrible reader. Reading comprehension is awful. I stutter, but I will try to get through, most of the big sections in the article that I think have some relevance in the Bryan Kohberger case. And the thing that's very interesting about this article is that in part 2, we're going to find that the person writing the article has the opinion that there is a lot of major inconsistencies, and they are, wondering if there's enough evidence to convict Bryan Kohberger. So let's pull up the article here. Give me a second. And it is from Airmail News, and the author of the article is Howard Blum. And if you didn't see my first part 1 to this, Howard Blum kind of, writes in a, what was it? A first-person novel type of style. So it has kind of some interesting edge to his writing, but uses a lot of facts from the case. And he's actually been down in Moscow reporting on this. And this is just kind of his reporting style. So we have The Eyes of a Killer, part 2. A cross-country father and his son drive becomes part of an intricate cat and mouse game. At the journey's end, 24 police officers lay in wait. Just give me 2 seconds. I just want to check something out here real quick. Yeah, I knew that's going to happen. I'm going to do a little bit of a rant here. YouTube, you guys over there really need to, give us some props here in these true crime channels, because the minute I say something like kill, blood, whatever, you're limiting my activity, you're limiting my monetization immediately, and I have not even said anything towards anybody. I'm not swearing. I'm describing real life event that's going on here, and it's getting annoying, because then I have to send it to manual review, and it takes 3 or 4 days for some lackey to look at it and go, oh yeah, this should pass. This is fine. And then, if anybody knows about YouTube, the first 3 hours of a video, when that post is the most important time on that video. So it's just getting annoying. This algorithm stuff is just getting really annoying. And that's my rant for the evening. But anyway, let's get back to the article here. So I'm not going to really read the prefix here. It just takes little pieces from the article itself. There was a section I wanted to start into here on the article. So over of course of what is expected, basically this first section here is just going to give you a little bit of a background of where we're at this point. Um, so over the course of what is expected to be at least four hard charging and affecting days, prosecution will strive to convince a judge that have been accumulated sufficient evidence to proceed with a trial. And the defense, acting on their own client's wishes, will retrieve whether it is intends to fight the allegations with all of the legal might, or if it could surrender Kohberger to the presumed mercy of the court and have him plead guilty. The outcome of the decision is likely a manner, literally of life and death. Idaho, an established an execution chamber where the lives of the judicial condemned are end up with a um, catalyzing drip of four solution lethal cocktails. Yet, regardless of what determined, it was still this in preliminary hearing and self-evident is the next stage for Bryan Kohberger's complicated life. A pain of existence lived by his own emissions under the treacherous star, set in motion by the road trip he took across America to his home in the Pocono Mountains for his Christmas holiday, a journey that ultimately brought him to his present forlorn destination, a cell in the Lathe County, Idaho jail, where he is being held without bail. So what I want to go into here is this part of the article. It says Michael Kohberger was worried about the snow. Only days earlier, he had flown from Philadelphia to Seattle and then caught a twin-engine Embracer 170 jet for an hour or so shuttle flight into the frigid Pullman Moscow Regional Airport. And now, December 13th, he was already heading back home. Only this time, it would be a road trip. It was a fatiguing back and forth cross-country jaunt, especially for a 67-year-old, but Kohberger had promised his son, Bryan, who had nearly a month off before class resumes at Washington State University, that he accompanied him on the drive back home from his Christmas break, and he had been determined to make good on his pledge. The thing that's very interesting about this, I want to hear the timeline, and obviously we're not going to hear this now, but we may hear this in court, is when was this trip planned? Was this planned at the very, very beginning of the school year, or was it planned, a couple of weeks, before or just around the time? Because I'm starting to wonder if Kohberger had ultimately had this kind of plan in motion. I'm going to go out to Washington State University. I'm going to commit this crime. I'm going to drive back, and basically get out of Dodge, like they would say back in the old days, on TV shows, like Wagon Train or something like that. And, basically, presumably head back to Pennsylvania. I leave the area. The authorities out there are stewing around for, weeks and months. I go back to school. No one notices anything about me. I'm not a suspect, whatever. I mean, that is one theory, one plausible theory. And, maybe we hear in trial, when this trip was all planned, because I think that's going to play a little bit into the evidence as well. So over the years, there's been some rough combative times between the two of them. He'd even had to get Bryan into rehab for kicking his teenage heroin habit. And we've known that all along, that Bryan did struggle with drugs. But now the young man seemed to be on a good path. Studying for his PhD in criminal justice offered a promising career trajectory for Bryan. And it is imagined it must be puffed up. And it can be imagined it must have puffed up his father with a prideful sense of parental accomplishment. After all, Michael's own life had been tarnished by not one, but two embarrassing bankruptcies, and his work days were a drudgery spent as a maintenance man at a dreary high school his three children had attended. Perhaps he was even looking forward to this road trip and a way to revitalize his relationship with his son, a way to bury once and for all any lingering remnants of the old antagonisms. But now, Michael, as he's later recount to an associate, was was largely focused on the forecast. When it snowed in the Northwest, the accumulations were roughly measured in feet, not inches. Michael knew, and he would wanted to get going. When the weather came in, it would be rough traveling in a seven-year-old Hyundai Elantra without four-wheel drive. You'd be slipping and sliding all over the road. So he urged Bryan that they should pack up and get going now. His son agreed. Once they were on the road, Bryan did something his father would later casually share with one of the mechanics at a garage near their home in Alsbrightville, Pennsylvania, who serviced the car after the trip that had caught him by surprise. Before Michael had headed out to Washington, he Googled the route back home. The quickest, most logical drive was pretty much a straight line plowing across the country along I-90. Bryan, however, buttonhooked south towards Colorado, where he'd pick up 170. It seemed to make a little sense. Colorado in mid-December was snow country, and there was no telling what might suddenly become blowing down from the Rockies. But Bryan, according to his father, told people, insisted the northern route of I-90 promised wintry conditions. Better to head away from the weather, even if it added hours or a day to the trip. It was a strategy that, when explained that reasonable way, was practical and prudent. I'm sorry. But it seemed like something more devious to the FBI. Unknown to either his father or the son, the Bureau had been determined to keep a watchful eye on the white Honda's trek across America. And that has been something that's been very speculated too, because we knew that, in a statement when Kohberger was pulled over twice. Hey, Jeff, how are you? Thanks for joining the stream this evening. Appreciate it. When Kohberger was pulled over twice, there had been some speculation that the FBI was involved during those two stops. And there was a rumor out there, or an article out there that I read, that basically they were trying to get, one, an ID on Kohberger to make sure that it was him, and two, they wanted to try to get some body cam footage of his hands to see if there was any type of, cuts, bruises, abrasions, anything like that. And I would expect that if you thought that someone was a potential murder suspect and they murdered 4 people, allegedly, that they would have, some kind of cuts, bruisings on their hands because of, the ultimate struggle to take down 4 people. And then the FBI, as we know, they came out later on and said that they had nothing to do with those 2 stops. But I just actually had a show the other night, and we watched a fantastic video of a former FBI profiler. And I forget his name. I'm sorry if his name slips my mind right now. And an active judge. And he said that, the FBI definitely was following, but it's just something maybe they just withdraw because of the case and because of the gag order at this point. So trek across America, only sources in law enforcement would confide with a bristle of embarrassment not long after the car had pulled out of its space in the graduating house parking lot fronting 1630 Northeast Valley Road in Pullman, Washington. They lost it. For several alarming hours or more, the authorities kept the precise details of this screw-up close to the vest. The chief suspect in the quadruple homicide that had shocked the nation that seemingly vanished. So basically, they when Kohberger left, they lost the car for a few hours, and they were probably like, where the hell is this guy right now? So an explosive secret. The Bureau's watchers called it a hotbox operation, and the jargon was a bit of an anachronism. It was a throwback to an era of the G-men sporting fedoras over their brill cream hair would be out in force on the street to monitor a target's every move. A sea of hats would box the suspect in. These days, the watchers have a few more tricks at their disposal: undercover vehicles, surveillance vans, low-flying fixed wing planes, and just for starters. But the name has stuck. And the surveillance on Bryan Kohberger's, according to the published reports and interviews with officials, where they was a hat box all the way. And I said hot box early. I apologize about that. Am I doing all right? Everybody with me so far? I know I'm a stutterer and I have terrible reading comprehension, and I probably read at like a 5th grade level. And this is my I need to read. What I do need to do is I need to read more books. I don't do that enough, and that probably would help me in situations like this. We'll move on here. So with good reason too, the investigators' rising sense of excitement and circumstantial theory they've been secretly incubating for weeks was growing stronger and stronger. Back on November 25th, Moscow PD had whispered to a local lawman to keep their eyes peeled for a white 2001-2016 white Hyundai Elantra. One of the others caught on surveillance video dashing about the neighborhood not far from King Road crime scene in early morning hours immediately following the murders. Thanks, Cheese. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for hanging out. If you're a man or woman, I'm sorry. I appreciate you hanging out. Thanks so much. And yeah, all you got to do is, if you want to read the article, I'm going to go through sections of it tonight. Just, I think you just have to sign up with an email address. I'm not sure if there's going to be a part 3 to it, but it's both reads are great. I've gone, kind of gone through both of them here on my channel, and appreciate you popping in. And we're going to continue to read on a little bit. Let's see. I'm not going to go through too much of this. Let's see. I wanted to talk about DM. So DM, one of the two 19-year-old surviving roommates, had seen the killer at a little past 4 a.m., just about when the detective theorized the 4 students had been hacked to death. She heard a plaintive cry. Anxious, she opened the door to her second floor room and saw someone. So this now is placing DM on that second floor. And I think there was a lot of speculation and rumors that she was actually on the first floor, but it would make more sense because she, this now puts her on that second floor. And as we know, the suspect in this, which is the alleged suspect, Bryan Kohberger, they think that he used that sliding glass door to walk out to the back porch to get out into the backyard and leave. A man dressed ominously in black was walking towards her. She'd vividly recalled the details forever etched deep in her memory at least 5'10", not bulked up, and but still trim like an athlete. He wore a mask that covered his mouth and nose, but not his eyes or eyebrows. And that's a very haunting photo right there. The profound and vehement sighs seize hold of her. A frozen shock phase how she would try to describe her galloping emotions. But the black-clad intruder continued past her as if she was invisible and headed towards the sliding glass door that led out of the house. So this makes me to believe that even with her standing there, even with DM standing there, that Kohberger, it's a couple of things. You have, probably so much adrenaline running that you basically have tunnel vision at that point. And, you're just looking to get out in the most quietest way possible. He walks past her. Now this makes it seem like she was out in the open. And I've read some articles where they were saying like she had the door cracked and kind of looked out. Seems like she's basically almost face to face with him. So I don't know if he even recognized her, if she wasn't just completely in his field of vision. We don't know. And she's going to be a very critical witness for the defense. So hopefully, she does testify in this case. Hopefully she has a very clear head going into remembering, because this is going to be a lot of great evidence for the defense if she gets up on the stand. So it goes into, for reasons that continue to be bound tight with the bands of mystery, Dylan returned to her room. locked the door and didn't emerge until 11 a.m. Only then, when she summoned friends who, in the state of full blown panic, at least called 911. So there has been some theory, and I know, and this is, this is the $1 million question: is why was it so late to call 911? And I remember in the interview with the FBI agent that I was talking about, former FBI profiler, that was talking about, he said, look, there's something that you possibly could look at here. You have a bunch of kids that lived in a house. It's now, the morning comes up. You can't ruse your friends. You think that someone is passed out or hurt. Maybe you did see the full blown scale of the murder, and it's now shocked you. You call friends because there may be or may not be illegal substances in that house that you're trying to kind of clean up a little bit before law enforcement gets there. So, those are some possibilities in this. Or you're freaking out in the fact of, holy shit, if I call the police right now, they may think that I did this. What do I do? And you call your friends. I mean, I've done that when I've, maybe gotten a you know a fight with a friend or a coworker, or maybe I'm arguing with a family member or something. You call a friend and you say, hey, what should I do? Let me run this by you. Or even just anything. You're buying something, you're purchasing something that might be large, and you need a second opinion. Hey buddy, what should I do here? Here's what's going on. I'm gonna this and that. This is the facts of what I'm trying to buy. What do you think? So maybe there's some of that as well that was going on, but we don't know because we weren't there, and we're not going to hear everything because obviously there's been the gag order, and if this goes to trial, we'll hear about it in trial. So it goes on to say, but as later related to her unnerving experience to police interrogation, she shared one detail that at the time seemed small, if not irrelevant. The man in black had bushy eyebrows. The man in black had bushy eyebrows. Guess who has bushy eyebrows? And now, 16 days long after the murders, Brett Payne found himself staring at a photograph of the man who might just be the intruder Dylan had seen walking profusely past through her home. All right, let's see here. So they go on to talk about some facts about using cell phone data to try to get the judge to sign off and issue a warrant. But it was not enough, as they sorely realized, to persuade a judge to issue a warrant. All they could do for now was store the intelligence away until another vital part of the puzzle could be unearthed. So it seems here they were going to try to just use cell phone data of probably all the areas that Kohberger were in to put him in the connection, but that would be all circumstantial evidence. And I think that's what ultimately is going to tie him in was that touch DNA. Obviously, we know that they found the touch DNA. All they could do for now was store the intelligence away, and another vital part of the puzzle could be unearthed. The critical eureka moment that would allow them to tie the desperate pieces into a firm knot, a knot that not even the most industrious defense attorney could hope to unravel. In the meantime, though, they would keep a watch on Kohberger. The entire country, or it so often seemed, was complaining that the case was dragging on and without resolution. I was one of those people. It's funny. I called back my first call, my first and only call to the Drunk Turkey Show, and shout out to them because those guys are killing it in the algorithm right now, and they are killing it on their show. They're doing great. I watch those guys go from like 1,500 subscribers almost up to 30,000 right now, and they're really killing it over there. And by the way, if you guys ever want to collaborate, want to come over and hang out on the channel, hit me up. That was my shameless plug. But anyway, that was one of the things that I called about and talked on their show. And I said, look, I don't think the Moscow Police Department is ready for a case like this. I mean, you're thinking this is a small town. It's a small college town. You know, what do they come across? They write tickets for drinking, speeding, and, you know, disorderly conduct. But little did we know, the chief of police, about 10 years ago, did a course in FBI training and profiling, and made probably a lot of friends during that, you know, training. I think he did like a 10-week course or something like that. And they talk about that actually in the first part of this article. And I'm probably, knowing what was going on, could call some friends and say, hey, I need some assistance on this. But basically what they were doing was building a case. Now that we found out, when came out, it would be a disaster, just not professionally, but also for their own peace of mind, because Moscow was for many of them hometown too. If Kohberger slipped out of their grasp before the handcuffs could finally firmly lock around his wrists. Only now, as a suspect headed across the country in the very car that is believed that is captured on the blurry surveillance footage, his father, mystifyingly at his side, they had lost him even before the Hatbox op could get underway. I wonder if he had a conversation with his dad. Said, hey, you know what? I mean, it's a long trip. Hey, you know what? I might have done some things. I might have been in trouble, but I don't know. Maybe not. I don't think so. I think they probably would have figured that out by now. Yeah, definitely. I'm not going to put any conspiracy theories out there, but you know what? It's a long trip. People do talk on long trips. A mood of panic rapidly escalated into one of despair. Frantically, they began to search the records of automobile license plates, ALPR, in near states, and it was an exercise in nothing, not a single hit. And then they got lucky. So give me 2 seconds. I just have to attend to my phone for like 2 seconds. I'm sorry. Let's see. Incoming message. Sorry. Oh, by the way, speaking of messages, I forgot to run my ticker. Let's do this. Ticker at the bottom. If anybody wants to call in and discuss, we can talk. All right. So let's move along. In the article. I'm not going to read too much about this. It's just kind of reiterating a lot of the information that we have already gone over. Hatbox on the way. Watchers keep their eyes covertly on the car all the way across to Pennsylvania. Fate had mercifully bestowed on them a second chance that they were determined not to stumble. Still, they were not prepared for what happened next. Let's see. The interstate was at a flat and empty landscape, and any threat of snow had vanished. The dome of the sky in I-70 was reasonably blue. In Michael Kohberger's claim, the steady universe, there was no reason to suspect that the FBI was lurking in the shadows. Even suggestion that such clandestine going, I got that one, going on likely to have struck him in a pre-Pistonius. Nevertheless, 2 days passed uneventfully, and the pair now drove through Indiana early in the morning of December 15th. Michael suddenly found the world starting to tilt off its axis. He abruptly had a new worry. It seemed incredibly that his son, Stolid University neighborhood in precious location, is now a stone's throw, in fact, from Bryan's apartment, had turned into a combat zone. And this is going to go into talk about like a guy with a gun. And I believe that they had shot and killed this person that was threatening the day that they actually left Washington State University. So the day that Kohberger and his father left WSU to travel back to Pennsylvania, there was a man with a gun at WSU. And that has been some speculation too, in theories out there, that was Kohberger, could this be the second person in this murder? Was this his accomplice? Because we know one of the only things that Kohberger said when he was arrested, did anybody else get arrested? And I don't know if he's doing that just to throw off authorities, to throw off the scent off him. But there has been a lot of speculation about this individual that that ended up barricading himself in an apartment and had a rifle. So it goes on here to say the details were this: Bryan had received and then apparently shared it with his dad a pinging alert on his phone. At around 3:20 a.m., WSU had issued an emergency advisory. The community was advised to shelter in place. As the Kohbergers would learn by listening to news reports earlier that evening, a man menacingly waving a rifle had threatened to kill his roommates. When the police arrived, the frightened roommate was released, but the rifle-toting individual, Brett Kopakia, a 36-year-old Army veteran reportedly suffering from PTSD, barricaded himself in the apartment and made it clear he wasn't going to leave. With the defendant declaration, events escalated into a dangerous momentum. When the Whitman County Regional SWAT team approached the apartment, the gunman opened fire. The police shot back. The three-line streets were suddenly crackling with gunfire. Crisis negotiated pleas answered with bullets. So negotiators' pleas were answered with bullets. And with the first light of a new day looming in the 7-hour standoff surged a harsh conclusion. The steady SWAT team sergeant shot Kopakia dead. The incident seemed, if his subsequent non-plausible conversations were any indication, to unnerve Michael. He had sent his son off to study for a PhD, not to get entrapped by horrifying events. Wow, that is so crazy and weird. Yeah, did the lethal shooting of the speculative bullets careening through his son's neighborhood prompt to concerned father to discuss with his son the brutal murder of 4 students just weeks earlier in a house of mere 15-minute drive from Bryan's apartment? It is difficult to imagine that it did not. Ranking over gruesome Idaho cases had in many quarters become macabre pastime. Would not an anxious father make up a leap of the one calamity to another nearby? One also tied to a university. After all, they were seated nearly shoulder to shoulder in the narrow confines of the Hyundai for 3 monotonous days. Montanomious. I'll get that out. They had found something to talk about on the long drive. Tedium is an effective catalyst, and the 2 touchstones were limited. It is a reckless to suggest that Idaho student murders were the stuff of substance father and son chat. The answers to the questions, however, are known to the 2 people to be revealed, if ever, on their own violation. Nevertheless, does it not take elaborate flights of the imaginations to envision the treachery of guarded conversations centered on the inflammatory local tragedy, or for that matter, to wonder how the demons of that, if the authorities' allegations have merit, might have been close to bursting forth. So what I want to go down to is kind of the bottom piece of this article, where they basically talk about, and this Michael Blum, actually, hang on one second here. This is going to talk about the stops. And the thing that I find very weird in this part here, and I was reading through it earlier, is that they were saying like Bryan was, not nervous. He was definitely nervous. I mean, go back and watch the two, especially uh, the one video where you can actually see him, and he's video. I mean, he's shaking and going back and forth. I actually can probably find the video. Hang on, I have it because I posted it on my channel. Let's see. Let's go find that, and I'll pull that up really quick. Yeah, the raw dash cam footage here. Let me get back to this. I'm gonna pull up that video really quick. Let's see. They wanted raw video. All right, let me pull that up because I always thought that he seemed nervous. You guys don't have to listen to me try to read. I'm a terrible reader.
I stopped you when you were driving by me there. You're a little too close back that semi. About one car in the back of this trailer. About one car going 10 miles an hour. So you're going 60 or 70 miles an hour. About 6 or 7 cars.
Speed it up a little bit here.
Okay. That's the easy way to explain it. Where are you to?
This might not. No, this is not the. It's the. This is the. That's the wrong video. Hang on, I'll find it. It was 2 stops. I have the videos up. I just have to find them. It's the one that they have a little bit more conversation. Where is it? This might be it.
Built on board.
Everybody, the opinion. I thought video state to W. Maybe I don't have it. I thought I had both of them. Well, that's annoying. Let me see. I could have swore I had both of them up here. Body cam footage, body cam footage. Body cam footage. Where is it? That might be it right here. Yeah, I don't have it. I apologize about that. But I thought in the videos he seemed nervous. So it's going to go on to talk about the 2 stops, and then let's see, crazy thoughts. And what about Bryan Kohberger, a man who professed his innocence? What emotions rushed through him as he saw flashing lights in his rearview mirror? To the judge, to judge his demeanor on 2 body cam videos, he displayed a remarkable calm. He seemed unruffled by the sort of highway encounter that would have left many people jumpy, even if they had never subsequently been charged with 4 counts of homicide. Highway cops routinely wielded their authority as a bludgeon, its first line of defense. Kohberger's emotional temperature, however, didn't appear to jump a notch, which I disagree on that. This is indeed one-sided Kohberger, discipline and control, as his courtroom appearance reveal can rule. I mean, the thing that you have to realize, this guy has been going to school to get his PhD in criminology. I mean, he's going to know all the ways, all the things that he can do to essentially, calm himself, hide all those fears, know the things that the authorities are going to be looking for, know the things that the authorities are going to be asking. Now, is he allegedly a good criminal when it comes to the acts that he may have done? No, he was very sloppy. And I think that we're going to find, and I've said this all along, the evidence that we have in front of us, I think we're going to find a lot more when that trial comes out. It's going to go on to talk about him as a child, things that he went through. We know about the visual snow. We know about his heroin addiction. We know about, um, him not being a very emotional, available person. We're going to talk about the day in this article, the day that they were basically trash robbing the trash to try to match that DNA off that sheath to someone in that house, possibly Kohberger. But I want to go down to this part of the article where, um, let's see, the very, very end. And then I have the link of the article there if you guys want to read through, but I don't want to go too crazy tonight. So here is the part of the article I really wanted to get into. And this is going to present some, basically saying inconsistencies, and this could help aid in the defense of Kohberger. So it says the most perplexing question, bad facts, is a phrase defense lawyers like to bandy about. Is a term that's meant to draw a epinological distinction between what is objectively real and what is subjectively opinion. Just because a prosecutor says it's true, well, that doesn't make it so. And if bad facts riddled with probable cause affidavit that the police used to obtain Kohberger's arrest, as well as those in the laundry list of seemingly provocative items found in the search of Kohberger's apartment in Washington, are indeed disturbing. So you have item. The affidavit cites a shoe with a diamond-shaped pattern similar to a pattern of Van Styles shoe found at the scene of the crime. Well, does Kohberger own a pair of Vans? And even if it's established that he does, there's a photo that shows at least one person in the house on King Road wearing Vans prior to the murders. Item. The cell phone tower data that links Kohberger to the scene of the murders is more than an approximate of his whereabouts than an exact location, and his being in the vicinity is not at all the same as being at the scene of a crime. More damaging, the affidavit, with the remarkable candor, admits to some confusion in the sort of analysis. Investigators found that the 845 phone Kohberger cell did not connect to a cell tower that provides service to Moscow on November 14, 2022. But investigators do not believe the 845 phone was in Moscow on that date. The prosecution is stating that the cell phone evidence is correct only some of the time. How's that going to fly with a jury? Item. The white Hyundai Elantra. While there are photos of the car zooming through the Moscow streets on the night of the murder, there's no clear photo of Kohberger at the wheel that evening. Not a single one. Item. The DNA on the DNA on the knife sheath snap is apparently touch DNA. That is derivative from a fingerprint rather than a drop of blood. And that's pretty shaky evidence, often more guesswork than science. The courtroom reality is that the case after case, touch DNA has been tarnished by a motley collection of false positive results. A smart defense attorney might argue that there is a much likelihood of touch DNA being accurate as a juror winning the lottery. Who'd want to condemn someone for executing based on those odds? And the thing that I have to say about that is, and again, we only have a small narrow of information that we can use to speculate because we don't know the full facts of this case. We don't know the full evidence of this case because there's been a gag order. And I've talked about this many, many, many times. Why would the prosecution or defense play all their cards out there in the public for the prosecution or defense to use that information to help their case? It just, cases don't work like that. That's why you have, reporters right now trying to find every available person that had anything to do with Kohberger or any type of fact that they can get down to try to make a story about this. On that as well, and I want to actually just touch on something right here, and this kind of opens up another little bit of a conversation. There's been a lot of criticism from people about YouTubers like myself discussing cases like this or discussing a case like this. Someone basically just called me disgusting in a comment. And the thing is, we're allowed to do this as Americans. I have a right to do this. I have a right to talk about this. I have a right to speculate. I have a right to come up with theories. It's an interesting topic. It's obviously extremely tragic what happened, but we have the right to talk about this. What do you think happens on nightly news? All the stuff that is put out there, they have a conversations over it. There's segments in news. If you watch Fox News, you watch CNN, they give a story and then they have a panel of people up there that talk about it. So your argument that I am disgusting and that channels like me are disgusting, someone compared to me that I am just as disgusting as the murderer that did these crimes. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And your argument essentially holds no water. So if you want to debate me about that, the number's up there. You can call the show at any time. I answer the phone during the show and we can have a conversation about that. But we are allowed to do this and we are allowed to talk about this. This is all public knowledge of what information is released about this case. And what do you think that this gentleman that's writing the article right now, he's talking and discussing this case. So your argument holds zero water. And if you don't like my material, just don't fucking watch. So we're going to go on to another item, the eyewitness identification. Well, there have been a lot of people with bushy eyebrows, and the testimony from the witness who was in a frozen shock phase, as she puts it, might be problematic at best. And that's without even getting into why she waited 7 hours or before making sure that the police were notified. The truth might very well be that DM, although she is not physically attacked, was another victim that night, and that she is in no shape to take the witness stand to face rapid firing, if not mean-spirited defense counsel. Item, the murder weapon. Where is it? The police have not found a long blade knife used in the killings, and they have so far not been able to establish that Kohberger owned such a weapon. And I have to wonder how they are trying. Just a week ago, I walked into Dunkelberger's on Main Street in Strasbourg. It was a sporting goods store that might as well have been an armory. There are walls mounted with racks of rifles and display cases lined with gleaming long-bladed knives. And I was just about a half hour from Kohberger's family home in Alsbright. It's a sort of local shop one might visit if one were looking to buy a knife. So I asked the man, who identified himself as the manager, if police ever checked the store records to see if Bryan Kohberger had made a purchase. Nope, he answered. Pretty surprising too, now that you mentioned it. But arguably, the most perplexing question that prosecutors will have to wrestle with if they hope to persuade a jury is why? What is the motive for someone to kill 4 college students in cold blood? And so far, there isn't one. I'm growing increasingly convinced that they are all I'm growing increasingly convinced that they are all will never find one, at least not a motive that's grounded in common sense logic. Motive as in reason, though it might not, that it might be another story. And so I find my thoughts being drawn back to the body cam footage that the police shot at the King Road residence on Thursday night in late September, less than 2 months before the murders. 3 officers were responding to a noise complaint and a neighbor, uh, annoyed a neighbor had made. The neighbor certainly had a good cause. The house was jumping. There was a telement of bashing music and high-spirited, attractive college kids wandering in and out of a 3-story home. Six packs and empty Truly cans were scattered about. I'm going to take a look up at this. Does everyone forget how tall Dylan is? I'm just saying, think about it. They were at the same eye level, so she was peeking out the door. She would have been a whole head taller than the killer. Let's see. And he wouldn't have seen her because people don't walk around looking up. From what I'm reading in this article, they were pretty close to each other, and I think that she was actually out of her room. If you go back and read this article, if you want to, the link is up above. Not telling. I'm starting to think that she wasn't peering out her door, that she actually was out pretty close to him when he walked by her, and for some reason he just didn't see her. As I watched the video, replaying it again and again, perplexing days that followed, I found myself reflecting on one old wise William Blake's let's see. The giddy goings were exuberant, all right, and their reckless heeding and cautions forever young Imlans, and they were beautiful too. Can you imagine looking at a wild night, all the happy, and some in a hideout in the shadows at the exact same time, knowing deep in your heart that you would ever be part of anything exuberant or beautiful? That would be hell. A hell of unsatisfied desire could plunge someone deeper and deeper into tormenting rage and envy that would all consume sickness. At the end, there would be no way out, just the deed. So he thinks that the killer is still among us, that Kohberger is not the killer. I have to disagree. It's a lot of mounting evidence that has been mounting allegedly against Kohberger. And, it's going to be remains to be seen. But if you want to check out the article here, there's 2 parts of the article. This is part 2. And I'm just going to answer this question real quick. No, the trip was planned before the time came, before who wants to make it a 48-hour drive by themselves. Yeah, we know that the trip was planned, but I want to know, was this plan months in advance? Was it just a couple of, weeks in advance? Was it planned at the beginning of the year? Because, my theory on that is, maybe Kohberger had been thinking about committing a crime like this for some time. It's all timed out around the time just before he leaves and goes on this, gets basically out of Dodge, goes back to Pennsylvania. Was this something that he was planning for months? Maybe his first kill. And the funny thing is too, if you watch the stream the other night, the FBI profiler said that this possibly could not be his first kill. He might have done this before. So that's a really interesting thing as well. That's a really interesting thing to think about in this as well. But anyway, I wanted to pop on this evening. I hope you guys got through my ridiculous, terrible reading of this article. And if you want to check out the article itself, you can go up and grab that link up above, click into it. I think you just got to put an email address and you can read part 1 and part 2. But this gentleman writing the article, Michael Blum, seems to think that there is not enough evidence to convict Kohberger in this case, to say that he was the one that did this. I tend to disagree. I think there's going to be a lot of more mounting evidence that will compile before trial. And like I said, we haven't heard anything about the testing DNA testing inside that car. And I'm telling you, they are going to rip that car apart and swab it all over the place. So remains to be seen. We have a lot still to talk about in this case in the upcoming months, because the preliminary hearing is not until June. I think June 24th, if I'm correct. But we still have a lot, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more that comes out in between then. So listen, I want to thank everybody for joining the stream this evening. I want to thank all the new people that have come over here and joined by subscribing. I have a lot of new viewers and a lot of returning viewers. For my returning video viewers, please hit that subscribe button, bell notification. Every time I go live, you guys come over here and check out the live streams. But that being said, I appreciate everybody checking out the stream this evening. I'm the Opinionated Idiot, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good night.